Welcome to r/malicious compliance, where we share stories of people conforming to the letter, but not the spirit of a request. And today we have 3 great stories, so subscribe, hit the like button, and let's begin. The first story: student leads a rebellion against a professor's crowdsourced quiz grading system. The second story: OP accidentally receives a massive server room upgrade at home, initially fearing financial ruin. The third story: mother of a high school student intervenes when 2 primary school children walk many kilometers home. The first story is: I organized a rebellion against the professor in my political science class. This was about 10 plus years ago when I had returned to the local university to finish my bachelor's degree in political science. The preface: I was a non-traditional student, so I was a little older and a little more willing to question things. I was taking a 3000 level political science course, so it designed was for poli-sci majors and was required for my poli-sci degree. It was a fairly basic political science course, but the professor did some weird things. Specifically, there was a quiz every class over the assigned reading. These quizzes made up a significant part of the grade. But here's the tricky part: he seemed to be doing some sort of experiment with the wisdom of crowds. The setup: the correct answer for a quiz question was the answer that was given by the most students in the class, a plurality, whether it was based in fact or not. Whatever the most students said was the correct answer. For example, if the question was what year was the US Constitution ratified, even though the factually correct answer would be 1789, if the majority of people were to choose 1776, then 1776 was the right answer, and you got credit for your answer. If you chose 1789, you were wrong and didn't get credit. This forced you to make a decision: try to be factually accurate or try to figure out what the crowd was going to do and go with that. Neither guaranteed you a correct answer. The majority of the time, the majority of students would actually choose the factually correct answer. But if it was a common misconception, or the question was poorly worded, then that could lead to a situation where the crowd was wrong. But here's what drove me nuts. I was not willing to make my grade dependent on what the other students thought might be the correct answer. My grade became dependent on conforming to what the crowd said was true. I had no real control over my grade since the wisdom of the crowd could be anything. A class of 30 students was probably not a large enough crowd to give you a good example of the wisdom of crowds. Learning the material was not the point. Conforming to the crowd was what got you a good grade. Cue malicious compliance and rebellion. I figured out that if we all agreed to choose the same answer for every question, then we could all guarantee ourselves a perfect score on the quiz. In reality, I only needed a plurality of people to go along with my plan. As long as I could muster enough votes for an answer, then we could control our destiny. It didn't matter if A was the correct answer or not. If we controlled the votes, we controlled our grades. And anyone who didn't go with us, they were going to fail regardless of if their answer was actually correct or not. I met everyone at the door to the classroom and explained the plan. For every question, we're going to choose the first option. If it's multiple choice, it's option A. If it's true/false, we're choosing true. If we all agree to this, then we can all get perfect scores. If you decide to go against us, your answer will be wrong. The first class we did this, the professor figured out after a few questions that we were gaming the system. He had us redo the quiz and graded us on the factually correct answers. After the second class we did this, the professor changed the rules. There were 2 answers that would get you full points: the factually correct answer and whatever answer the majority agreed upon. Results: in the end, I was okay with this arrangement. I could study and give the correct answer without being penalized for not conforming to the crowd thinking. Or if I made the same mistake as the majority of people, then I still got credit for it, and it was a good discussion point for the class. Yes, I got an A in the class. I'm not sure if the professor ever figured out who organized the rebellion, but I ended up working with him in grad school and we got along just fine. Afterward, I always wondered, did he do this to teach us about the power of grassroots organizing? It might not have been his intention, but he turned me into a leader even though I never wanted to be one. I organized a campaign to overthrow bad leadership, and we created a new regime where truth and discourse were both valued. And we learned that a plurality of voters can determine the path forward even if they're not the majority. P.S. This whole scheme was flawed and subject to the tyranny of the majority. I'm not sure how he didn't see this. It seems pretty basic to me. 1. Or maybe he was trying to teach us about game theory. I never did figure that out. 2. And let's be honest, if you knew the right answer, trying to figure out what the majority of people would do is a losing proposition. You knew the answer, so trying to figure out how the majority of people could get a question wrong forced you to think opposite to what you got the correct answer in the first place. 3. Not 100% accurate, but close enough. In a sense, we were randomizing the correct answers, so anyone who wasn't going along with our plan could really only hope for 25 to 30% correct answers, assuming that the distribution of factual answers was random. The professor of a political science course organizes daily tests, where the correct answer is determined by a majority vote of the students, even if it's not the actual correct answer. This puts students in a situation where their grades depend on how much they agree with the majority, rather than on their understanding of the material. It's a strange teaching tactic, so I don't know if you were lucky with your teacher, but OP reacts to this situation with malicious compliance and comes up with an explosive idea to organize a rebellion against the system. I think it's brilliant. He leads a group of students who coordinate their answers on tests to ensure that they get the highest possible score. OP successfully implements his plan without giving other students the opportunity to decide for themselves and risk low scores. Sometimes unpredictable and malicious actions can lead to unexpected and positive results. The next story is, this is not a mistake. Last year I was ordering an upgrade for the server room at work. It was a large, expensive upgrade that cost over $500,000. If you've ever had to call a manufacturer to order equipment at this amount, you may know that once you get a good reputation with a manufacturer, they tend to cut red tape for you to maintain a good working relationship with your company. I, in the past, have bought equipment for my personal use at home, and it takes forever to get a rep on the phone, and they often screw you on the deal. While I was making the order with the manufacturer, I inquired about getting personal equipment to see if it would be possible to make a separate order for myself with my own money. The rep had no issues with it and was happy to make the second order. He placed both orders and even gave me a company discount for my order. Now, I did make it perfectly clear that the second order was a personal order and not in any way connected to the corporate account or order. He confirmed this and the order was locked. A few months went by and the equipment showed up in the loading dock at work and everything was in order. However, my order never arrived at my house. I attempted to contact the manufacturer but got put on hold for hours. I gave up for now and figured I would try again in a few days. The next morning the equipment showed up. It was an exact match for the equipment that was sent to my work. Now keep in mind the order I placed for my house was a blade server that was just over $6,000 USD. This was not what I ordered. I went into panic mode as I can't afford this equipment, and when they bill me I'll be screwed. I checked my bank account and found no charges yet. Now I'm really panicked now as I think they billed to my company, effectively double charging them. I expect I'll get fired. When I returned to work after my weekend, I emailed billing and got a copy of the invoice. Well, they didn't bill my company for the equipment sent to my house. Now I'm really confused. So at this point I drop it. It's a pain to get them on the phone and I can't call the corporate line when it's a personal order. A month later I got an invoice in the mail with a late charge for failure to pay. Okay, now I can get this fixed. I see they want $6,000 plus $250 for late charges. That's odd. I called the retention number and got a rep. I gave her the account number and she told me she needed to transfer me to a manager due to the amount. Okay, cool. The manager picks up the phone and I try to explain the bill is wrong and the equipment they sent wasn't what I ordered. And he immediately cut me off with, "You need to pay the invoice. You're in violation of the contract and we will sue you if you don't pay it immediately." I tried again to explain the equipment issue, but again he cut me off and demanded I pay. So I told him I would take care of it then. I said sorry for being an inconvenience and I'll call my bank right away. I then confirmed the bill amount and the part order number for my equipment labels. He confirmed it and said, "See, there was no mistake." And as I was about to hang up, I know I heard him say in a smug tone to someone else, "That's how you deal with poor D-heads." Called my bank and got them to unblock the transaction. It was stopped for fraud alert. The amount was paid. I'm now the owner of a $500,000 server room in my basement. A few months later, I had to order some more connectors for the fiber lines and spoke to their rep again. I inquired about buying personal devices again, since the last time went so well. Apparently, they can't do that anymore. Something about a manager fraud investigation. Can't imagine what that's about. It seems that it started out as a nice opportunity to order some equipment for personal use, but it quickly turned into a real problem. Attempts to find out what happened to his order led to a number of unexpected situations, such as receiving equipment at work but not at home. The most interesting thing here is the drama that develops regarding bills and payment. Our OP, panicked by a possible double bill, notes a misunderstanding with a company representative, who demands payment and threatens legal action. As it turns out, the whole conflict arose from a mistake in the invoice, not from an intent to defraud. In the end, we see that the OP resolved the situation by canceling the account and becoming the owner of a huge technical system in his own home. The third story is, what are you going to do about it? Call the cops? I was a senior in high school when all of a sudden I got sick at school and had to be sent home. Because my car was in the shop, my mom had to come get me. It's about 9:30 a.m. when this happened. As we're driving up a very busy street, we see two 7 to 8-year-old kids, we'll call them Frank and Zelda, trying to cross. Worried, Mom pulls over to see what's going on. The conversation went roughly as follows. Mom, kids, are you guys okay? What are you two doing here? Frank, Dr. Idiot said we couldn't come to school early, so he sent us home. Now, Mom is very familiar with Dr. Idiot. He was the principal at the elementary school my younger brother was attending at the time. My brother Mark was going through some behavioral issues at the time, and Mom was commonly called to the office, to the point they were on a first-name basis. Not that he allowed her to use his first name because I have a doctorate in education, so it's Dr. Idiot. So in other words, he was an entitled idiot. There was a gas station 10 feet away, so Mom tells Frank and Zelda to meet us there. We pulled in, got some water for the kids as it was a hot day, and Mom calls Dr. Idiot's cell phone. Again, the conversation went roughly as follows. Idiot, this is Dr. Idiot. Mom, hi, this is Mark's mom. I have two kids here named Frank and Zelda, and they say they were sent home early? Idiot, yes, their parents dropped them off at 6 a.m. because they had to work. Something about mandatory overtime. Of course, we're not a daycare, so I just told the kids to go home and wait for the bus. Mom, are you kidding me? We're 5 miles away from the school. They walked all that way. It's a wonder they weren't hit by a car or kidnapped. Idiot, what are you going to do about it? Call the cops? Click. Mom was absolutely floored, but she decided to give Dr. Idiot a nice dose of reality. At the time, we lived in a small town. How small? So small that sometimes the chief of police would have to walk the beat. And that day, he happened to be a block or so away from the gas station. When he got the call, he arrived, got the whole story from not only Frank and Zelda, but from Mom and me. And being a father of two elementary-age kids himself, he was peeved. He looked at Mom and said, Chief of Police, it's time I had some words with Dr. Idiot. The chief of police drove Frank and Zelda to the school in the squad car, which they were super excited about, personally escorted them to their class, and then marched to Dr. Idiot's office and proceeded to tear him a new butthole, telling Dr. Idiot that he'd help the parents press charges on him for child endangerment, among other things. From that day on, Dr. Idiot allowed Frank and Zelda to be at the school early on the days their parents had mandatory overtime. Update. So I got some details from Mom about why Frank and Zelda were just dropped off at school. Their aunt works at the elementary school and agreed to watch them until school started a couple of hours later. She wasn't on the clock. Frank and Zelda didn't live in a good part of town, and their parents understandably didn't feel their kids would be safe if they were alone. Update 2. As for why the aunt didn't see the kids, the parents dropped the kids off 10 minutes before the aunt arrived, and Dr. Idiot assured them that he'd watch the kids for the 10 minutes. Once they were gone, he told the kids to scram. When the aunt got there, she came in a different direction so she didn't see them. He told her that the kids hadn't been dropped off. Since they were at work, Workplace was very anal about cell phone usage. She had no way to reach them to confirm that. She had no freaking clue what really happened until the chief of police turned up with the kids in tow. The main impression is the interaction with the director, who instead of apologizing or explaining, simply answers, "What are you going to do about it? Will you call the police?" Such nonchalance is truly shocking. However, when it turns out that the city's chief of police officer is also a father of two, understands the risks and speaks out in defense of children, the director changes his mind. Hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Have a good day.